Hi, everybody that's joining us on YouTube. We'll be painting a scene with Hollyhock and looking north at Ross's Cove. And we're doing this on 200-pound Waterford paper or 140-pound cold press arches in a square format. Mine is 6 inches by 6 inches. So I've already done some work on this. This is the photograph. My husband took this in 20 years ago in 1998. Well, 21 years ago, 3, I guess. And I sketched it out with the horizon line slightly high. And then these are the mountains there. I made them a little bigger. So there's less sky, more mountain, less sky. And then these trees, I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them, but they're nice right in here. There's stuff in front of this little spot right here, which is where the surf goes into the cove. And then we have the 2 green areas coming across and the hollyhock in front. And I took PBO and made all the pink flowers with just dots of PBO. So that's where I'm going to start. I'm just going to paint this because this painting is small, 6 inches by 6 inches. I'm going to use my number 10 round brush that I like so much. And the first part of this, I'm going to paint wet into wet, which is going to be the sky. And then I want the top of this mountain here that I'm pointing to. I want the top of this to kind of be blurry, so that's going to be wet into wet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet all across the mountain here. My line is going to disappear because I sketched mine with water-soluble graphite. So it just turns sort of gray and smudges away. And then I don't want a harsh horizon line because it's pretty misty out there. So I'm just going to wet my water down, but not my white surf. I'm leaving my white surf dry, but I'm wetting my water and my mountain here. That's how much I'm going to paint right now. So that sky is, well, it's summer in Half Moon Bay, so it's gray. It's a gray sky, but I am going to put a little bit of Antwerp blue up at the top of it. I've got petals, plum petals in my paints from Wednesday's painting. So what I did just now was I touched my paper towel, so I don't have that much paint Antwerp blue in my brush right now. I'm just going to put a little bit of this across the top. And I'm going to put a little bit of it here into the ocean water. Now I'm going to go to French. French. Let's put it right in the top of my Antwerp. And a tiny bit of permanent rose. I'm sort of making purple. Now that's kind of a nice bright purple. Now I'm going to paint my sky. And go right into over my mountains a little bit and down as it gets softer and softer as it hits the horizon. I have to be very careful now to leave my whites in my water. So where my surf is, I can go back in I'm going to go in with a little bit more Antwerp into my ocean. And I want to put just a little bit of green into my water. I'm so tempted to use this a tiny bit of quinacridone gold. And now I'm just gonna, so that it's damp, my ocean's damp. Just have a little bit of green. There's no green in that photograph, but I have to leave there. That's that part. I need to keep going now because this mountain here, I want it to blur up into the sky. I'm going to go, so the next color that I'm going to use is burnt sienna. My burnt sienna has a lot of pink from Wednesday, so I'm going to rinse that out. And I can either use raw sienna or quinacridone gold because I want that sort of orangey, yellowy color from the cliffs. So now this is damp, and I'm painting the bottom of the cliffs. I'm very carefully going to leave the white sand and surf. I didn't paint it just a solid color. I left some spots of lighter areas. You can see the top is kind of white and blurry now. What I'm going to do is make my favorite green, which is burnt sienna and Antwerp blue. You can see my palette better. Sorry about that. And I'm going to make the top of this cliff where the cypress trees grow this color. And I want it, because it's still damp, it's kind of blurring into the sky and into the cliff color.
What color is that, Mary Kay?
Antwerp and burnt. Antwerp blue and burnt sienna. And the cliffs, the trees sort of angle down. So. And then my last step is I'm going to mix up some more of this green and put a little bit of French into it and make just a little darker set of trees that goes right here in the photo and right here in the painting. So this final green that I'm going to do in this step, that's all wet into wet, is burnt sienna and Antwerp blue. And I'm going to add a little bit of French ultramarine blue to it and make it a little darker than the one I just painted. So I'm just going to, I'm going to make it slightly higher than the one I just painted. See how much darker it is. So this is just making it feel like this is closer to us. And it'll go right over some of those flowers. Wish I'd put some more Pedialyte in there. And then I have this other kind of cliff that's going to come in here. Okay, that's good. Just in my painting right at this moment, I have something that's called a tangent going on. I've talked about this many times, but this is just a slightly different version of it. So what I did when I put this dark tree bush in here, I went up to my PBO, and on one side I have the trees, the dark tree, and on the other side I have the shore, all the surf and the sand. And I can't really do that. I need to make this green go across those pinks. It doesn't have to be a lot. I just have to catch it in a couple spots so that we know our eye just doesn't get confused. There, that's good. Now, that is the first step of my painting. This part right here, my eye is going to where I'm pointing on my painting because I've got a triangle going up. So I need to sort of fill that in a little bit. So my eye's not going there so much. There. So that's the first step.
Mary Kay, would you go back and what color is the cliff?
So the next step is to put in just a tiny dark line at the bottom of the cliffs, but it has to be so pale because it's in the fog. But I think it does need to be there for two reasons. One is that the cliffs out there at Ross's Cove do have a lot of rocks out there and at the base of the cliff. So that is to make a dark rocky color, we're going to make our own sepia, which is French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. So I like to make my own sepia because you can lift it later if you get it wrong, whereas the sepia that you squish out of a tube is very staining. So I'm really gonna just tap my paper towel so I have the tiniest bit of dark paint and see how it looks when I put it. Yeah, it needs to be very, very soft. And the rocks kind of follow the cliff out here, and there's some rocks out here. Sort of defines the edge of that cliff. And then there's some here at the bottom here, and there's a few in the water at the base there. That's all I need. And I think it adds quite a bit. Just that subtle little sepia right in that area. Now the next thing I'm going to do is paint in my sand. I'm going to leave my white surf part and just paint in the sand. My go-to colors for sand are raw sienna and burnt sienna. I always feel like I can get pretty close to sand color with those two colors. And if it needs to be grayed a little bit, I add a little bit of French Ultra to it. It gets pretty close to the sand color around here. So the sand I'm going to paint goes right along the base here. But I have to leave the white between the ocean and the sand. And this, where the sand is wet next to the surf, just take a little bit of French ultramarine blue, just a tiny bit, while the sand is wet. Is that light annoying? The shadow from that lamp over there
No.
is okay? All right. So I've got, what I've got is French ultramarine blue in my brush now, and I'm putting it into the raw sienna and burnt sienna that I painted the sand with, right next to the water, because that's where it gets dark, and then it makes it look like, oh, the water just rushed out and left the sand dark. You can add a little bit of shape to it if you want. So that's the high tide mark. The dark's up here, the rocks, and the sand. I'm going to go ahead and put in the greens behind, in the foreground, the greens behind all the hollyhock. So this green that I'm going to do first, I'm going to do the one on the right side first. It's just my favorite green, which is burnt sienna and Antwerp blue mixed together. I'm going to make two different greens though. I'm going to make this dark green. I'm going to wipe up my palette and I'm going to make another green. So there's that green. Now I'm going to rinse out my brush, wipe up this side of my palette, and I'm going to make another green. I'm going to make a brighter green. I'm going to make green with Antwerp blue. Oh, now I should have gone the other way. And Kansas yellow medium or bumblebee. Oh, there's a nice green. That's bright. That says summer. Huh. If it's too bright, you could do it with quinacridone gold. That makes a nice green too. All right, I'm going to go ahead and wet this corner where this green hillside is. You can see I've got green in my brush, so you can see where I'm wetting it. That's wet. And now I'm going to just put in these two greens. I'm going to start with the dark here in the corner. Add this brighter green in, kind of hiding here. You can even go with brighter, more pigment on both of those because I have the waters. I just made more paint because I'm going to add. I need to have this brighter than my hillside back there because that's far away and this is foreground, so it needs to be brighter and brighter green. And I wet it first, so it's kind of fading because it's diluting on the page. But I like that look, so I'll just add more paint. Painting right over my PBO. And I want this corner dark because I don't want my eye to go sliding out the corner. And I need color behind all those flowers. I'm going to make them pop out. So if I have really dark colors behind the PBO, they'll pop out, which is what I want. right, I'm going to make a little bit more of the bright green with my Hansa Yellow Medium in Antwerp. I just want to have a couple bright green spots in that. I like that. There. That's good. And the final thing I'm going to do before I let it dry is I'm going to paint this left side, the foreground behind the flowers of the left side. And I'm going to start with burnt sienna on this one. I'm gonna wet it too. Again, my brush is dirty so you can see where I'm wetting it. I'm just going to sort of leave a little white space so that those two don't blur together. Don't need this to be sopping wet, just a little bit wet. You can see I've got a dirty brush, so you can see where I'm wetting it. Okay, I'm gonna start with the burnt sienna now. I just wanna, at this little spot, there's a little kind of pathway. So I just like, and I love the color of burnt sienna. I think it's so beautiful. I just kind of want to put that at the top there. And now I want to add greens. I want to do my favorite dark green, which is burnt sienna and Antwerp blue, which I've said a bunch of times already. If anything, we want this corner to be even darker than the corner that we just painted, because it's a little bit closer to us, and so it will be even darker. Because the way that you show depth in a painting is that the foreground is the darkest, and each successive layer going away gets lighter and lighter, which is just means you have more water in your paint. In watercolor, oils, you have to add white paint. So it's kind of making just going to add just a little bit of that lighter green into some of these spots here. And then the last layer is to put in the hollyhocks. We'll take off the PDO and we have to put in some leaves and some stems, but we're all set for that. So right now I do have this little white line because I didn't want those two to blur together. And generally our eyes and our minds will fill in that. You wouldn't even notice if you look at this painting here, which you don't even really notice that I have a white line right there. Your eye just fills that in naturally. But if it's too blaring, you can smudge it so it's not as obvious. And then of course you run the risk of a watermark and all kinds of things. But that's our next step right there. The next step that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in stems that connect my flowers and a few leaves. And I'm going to do that with, I think the little stems are kind of a reddish brown. So what I'm going to do is take burnt sienna. Again, I'm just going to clean this spot in my palette. And add a little French ultramarine blue, so that's making sepia. But it's got a little bit of pink to it. So I'm going to add some permanent rose to it and see what I get. Kind of a purpley brown color, that's what I want. That's the stem color. Just mixing those colors until I get the shade I want, which is about right there. And I'm gonna use this brush because it has such a fine tip on it that if I barely touch it, it'll make a very nice thin line. So I'm gonna try to sort of just attach. I'm gonna make my stems going up the middles of these. And they do have little branches that come off. Those have to be very thin too. So I'm sort of making one branch that goes through most of these. So that was a thick one for this little one. Well, this little guy. It's a big guy. It's clear up to here. So there's the stems, which are looking like they're holding them together. And now I just want to make another green. I'm going to layer another green on top. I'm going to make my favorite green. I'm going to make both colors again. My favorite green, Antwerp blue and burnt sienna. And I just mix those back and forth till I get the kind of tealy green that I love. And then I'm going to make another little batch of the light green with my Hansa Yellow Medium and Antwerp. Now the shape of these leaves on the hollyhock, they're sort of like 5, but they're very kind of folded in, and so they're and they do kind of just follow the stem. And then I can paint right over these flowers because they're going to, once I lift the PBO, the flowers will be in front. So I can just paint right over. And I'm not really, yeah, I am kind of painting each leaf, but it's really just a brush stroke. And they get little bitty ones at the top. Little buds. And you can hide anything you want with these leaves. Any little part of your painting that didn't really work out. I can make it the more leaves at the bottom. I make tiny little leaves at the tops of these hollyhock. Big leaves at the bottom. That's kind of all
What color are
one.
those leaves?
What?
What color are those leaves?
The first green, there's 2 greens. One is Antwerp and burnt sienna, that's the dark one. And the lighter leaves are bumblebee yellow and Antwerp.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna add some more of that lighter yellow now, or lighter green. You can throw in any colors you want, really. You can even just sort of make a couple yellow leaves or even some gold, just a variety of greens. The picture, they really look like a lot of yellow greens in there. I'm gonna just try some quinacridone gold into these leaves and see what it does. I don't want to do too much of that, so it doesn't look that good. Okay, I think I have enough. Yeah, that looks like the hollyhock is quite in front. I just dried this with the blow dryer really well, and I'm ready to take the PBO off. It has to be really, really dry, or you'll smear those dark greens into your beautiful white paper, pulling off the PBO. This is called a pickup. It's from Cheap Joe's. Oh, I lost those little spots because they were up in the surf, but I can put those back in. See, I did it anyway. I got some little dark smudges in my flowers. There they are, the white hollyhock, but I'm going to make them pink because the wild ones are pink with some purple. So this is just pure permanent rose. And I'm just going to put it into all the little white holes. I'm going to leave some highlights, some white highlights. So I'm not going to paint it solid pink all the white. This just takes a minute, a few minutes. There's my little pink spots going up there. I'm just going to do this fast. You guys can take your time, but otherwise it's very boring to watch me just do this. So pretty. I live in such a beautiful area. It's so inspiring. Beautiful landscapes. Beautiful birds, beautiful flowers. So I'm leaving some whites because the little they have little light areas and it just makes them pop out more. And then the last step is to mix up a little purple, which is permanent rose, and French ultramarine blue. And I'm just gonna put some, basically just dots into those pinks because they have sort of dark centers. So if I just touch it while it's still damp, they sort of bleed. Just changed up my purple. I made a little pinkier. I'm going to switch back. I'm going to do a few of these and then switch back to a darker purple. The buds can kind of be this pinkier purple. Oh, this is fun. Okay, I'm going to add a little more French. So I'm changing the amount of purple or the blue in my pink. I'm changing the amount of pink and blue in these purples. So sometimes it's pink with more pink and sometimes it's with more blue. I'm just adding it, like I said, right to the centers because and little bitty ones at the tops. There they are. They're just shining in the sunshine.
Lovely.
Very nice.
We can add more. Add more leaves if you need them. I think I'm done now, so I'm going to quit. Okay.
Very nice.
We need to
Thanks
get
for-
back to class. I want to sit next to Chris.
Uh,
I would like to be in class too.
I'm looking forward to it. What do you guys think? Next fall?
I don't
Maybe?
know.
Maybe.
Who's next? Penny. Okay, Penny.
Did you put any accent in this tide?
I don't know that I would do that, but the part that my eye kind of goes to is that cleavage spot, right? That point right there. It's such a sharp spot and you don't have any flowers kind of covering it up. I think if anything like that that's the spot. And I think what I would do is just take that green that is on the right side and make it not go dipping right there. Yes, angle it. Yeah, that's all I would do. Just give her a little less cleavage right there. All right, Vicki. Because if they're kind of in the fog and far away, they're going to be a little softer than that. And once you soften those, then your eyes will just be popping on the flowers, which is what we want. Chris.
I show you again?
Yeah.
See myself.
Yep, that fixed it.
Where am I?
And now I can think about the surf. A couple, just a tiny bit of paint would be okay to put in that surf because it's not just a solid white line. There is a little bit of color in that white surf. So you can go ahead and do that. Just, yeah. I know, yeah, your flowers aren't pink, but the shape of that is really interesting. And I like the kind of drippy feel to that far mountain. So it's a lovely little painting. It's very striking. It almost kind of has like a Crater Lake feel to it. like an Oregon peel. It's a nice little painting, Mary.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, nice job.
Thank you.
I'll show mine, Mary Kay.
Okay, Arlene. Lift it up a little bit.
I'll show you mine, but I didn't do the flowers because I wanted to wait till it dried. So
You're smart about that, Getty. You work on it later. I like that. Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Get ready for those pinks when you
it'll
are.
look better with the flowers, but
Yeah,
I'm fairly happy with it.
good.
Good job.
So Elaine and no, Getty, we saw Getty's. Getty, I do have a thought about yours. So you have the white surf
Yeah,
around in the back, but
right.
between the viewer and the ocean, you kind of lost that spot of white surf. Think
So
you
make
can,
it colored a little bit.
can you lift it up? So there should be sand, white, and then ocean.
Yes, the ocean right in front of this. Wait a minute, right here.
Okay, I'm gonna pin you so you're bigger for me.
Right there.
I'm not recording you, I'm just, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll try to scrub that a little bit, but I don't think I can get it. I used this really heavy paper. That's a 6-inch square.
Mm-hmm.
So
You might surprise yourself that you
Okay.
can lift it up.
all right, I'll try.
Actually, you know where it is? It's
This is-
behind the dark
this is-
line.
This is too white.
It is. Yeah, you
You
can,
can color it up, just put a little bit on it.
yeah.
Gray
So
it
the dark line, that is where the sand is wet.
Right.
It should be dry sand, wet sand, and then the white surf.
Okay, so it's in here needs to be tan. Okay.
Yes, and then in front
I see. It's
is in the ocean is where the white part is, not the sand. Make sense yet?
yeah, the down here is where the white. and
That'll be sand.
okay, and then up here is white.
No,
No?
I'm gonna point to it in my picture, okay, Getty?
Wait a minute, let me pin mine
This
so
is
I
all
can see.
getting recorded. Very nice.
I'm home.
Bye-bye. I love you.
Thanks, everyone, for joining me, and
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank
we'll
you.
see you later.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.